150 feet, it's going to be dense and there's going to be no escaping it.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is an area, EMF sensitivity and EMF exposure. It's an area that I've researched a lot because, like I said, I feel like it's something that our generation needs to address, and it is affecting our children. And sadly, there's not a lot of great information out there. And what I'm seeing is kind of what we saw a decade ago with the more natural health and natural food movement, is that the moms are the ones on the front lines going, something is wrong with my child, and all the medical professionals are telling me it's fine and that kids are just normally like this, and I don't believe it. And so I'm going to research and I'm going to change their diet and I'm going to improve their sleep. And look, they're acting a lot better. And I feel like moms are now asking all these hard questions about EMFs. And I feel like moms maybe are going to be the ones who start mitigating it even before we have, like you said, a better understanding of it and less controversy in the area. I feel like moms are still willing to tackle this right now. So I'd love to get really practical and talk about, first of all, how we can know if EMFs are a problem in our own individual homes.
And you're right. It's always going to be the moms. And, you know, you're right. It's part of this ancestral awareness. And 10 years ago, it was food. I would bet that a lot of your followers are online with blue light and its impact on sleep. And I think this is just the natural progression of that. And in terms of mitigating homes, well, I kind of like to work backwards. I'd like to start with the wireless. And ideally, believe it or not, you're going to go back to having Ethernet cords in your home that you're going to hook your computer to, your laptop to. That would be ideal in terms of even having Wi-Fi. Number two to that would be to turn your Wi-Fi off when you're really not using it. And especially turn it off at nighttime. And certainly any cell phones should be in airplane mode as well when you're not using them, when you don't need a call, and especially at nighttime. I would recommend that everyone go back and buy an old clunker corded phone for their home, because the cordless phones, the DECT phones, DECT phones, are really just about as bad as cell phones. They're constantly putting out signals, and the base is communicating with the remote phones. So those are the wireless things that you want to change. You also want to think about baby monitors. I don't know if there is a hardwired solution for one. It would seem difficult to me, but do you really need it, I guess, is a good question to ask. And any other sorts of wireless or Bluetooth things that you have. Game controllers like PlayStation and the whatnot, apparently those will communicate even in the turned off mode. So you actually have to unplug those from the wall in order to get those Bluetooth communications to quiet. Do you have any questions about any other wireless sort of thing that I could address?
I think you're spot on. And I've heard the same in my own research about the game consoles. And we don't have any of we have like the old from my childhood Nintendo system that is so pixelated that it's hardly a video game system. And I'm okay with that one. And it's usually off. But all the new ones, they're always broadcasting. And I've heard people who test houses say that those are some of the highest EMF things that they encounter are the video game systems. What we do is for both where our internet is and also where our TV is, where everything, like I guess VCR, Blu-ray player, whatever it is now, and all that is plugged in, we have both of those on surge protectors, and we just turn the switch off when we're not using it, and it turns everything off. We also have at night, we have a timer on that surge protector, so everything goes down at night automatically, and we can also turn it off earlier. So that would be my tip to moms. It's like a $10 timer that you get on Amazon, and it makes it easier if you forget to turn it off. It just automatically goes down at the kids' bedtime, so they're not exposed. But yeah, I think that's a great synopsis of the wireless thing. And I've heard people say, I'm curious if you would agree, that if we can even just reduce our exposure during sleep by that much, that helps so much, because we are trying to get in that parasympathetic and our cells are more vulnerable at night. So if you reduce the nighttime exposure, that's such a big factor. And most of us aren't even necessarily in our homes all day anyway, if we've got kids at school or playing outside. So that nighttime exposure seems to be very important. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about getting back into that parasympathetic state and making your environment quiet and dark, electronically quiet. And your idea about the power strip and turning it off, that and a timer, that's wonderful. There's another a little gizmo that's called a smart plug, where you actually have a remote. It's just like your garage door opener or something, and your device plugs into this other thing that plugs into the wall, and you can remotely cut it off. Because I know some people's schedules are not always the same, and you end up unplugging the timer and you don't reset it and whatnot. Everybody has to find what works best for them, but turning those things completely off at the wall or unplugging them is the solution. I didn't mention smart meters, and those are, of course, another form of wireless pollution, and they're unavoidable in many cities, and you don't have any control over that frequently. Sometimes you can pay your utility company an extra fee and avoid that. That's what's happening in my community, and I think it's worth it. You're essentially paying for someone to walk around and read your meter rather than someone driving by with some device that can remotely read it. But these smart meters have a lot of emissions. They're communicating a lot. And the way to protect yourself and your family from those is with different shielding sorts of solutions. And you would have to go on one of the low EMF sort of sites online and find shielding material that you would put around that, between that in your home, so that it was only broadcasting towards the street, and try to really minimize the amount that is being broadcast into your home.
That's a good point. And at least from what I've read on that, the good thing is if you're able to shield, like you said, between your house and the meter, so it's only pointing out, it's the further you get from it, it declines. The EMFs decline pretty drastically. Like within the first 5 feet seem to be the most dangerous for sure. So it's not like you're beaming dangerous radiation to your neighbor unless they happen to be 2 feet away from you. It's just you want to block that from coming into your home. And unfortunately, we are kind of in a world where we have to mitigate these kind of things if you can't opt out, which is we're in that scenario as well. Thankfully, our smart meters, not as bad as they come. I know there's kind of a varying degree of how bad they can be and how often they broadcast, but another one of those things to be aware of for sure.
Absolutely, yes.
And then, so those would be wireless forms of EMFs. And one that I feel like does not get talked about enough, and the reason I was so excited to talk to you, is wired forms of EMFs, because I think it's easy. A lot of us are on board with understanding, our kids shouldn't be playing with cell phones when they're young. They shouldn't be exposed to Wi-Fi as much as possible. But it's harder to grasp potentially the idea that we are also getting EMFs from wires that are in walls that are not broadcasting anything. So can you explain what's going on there and what we need to be aware of?
Sure, absolutely. So the wiring in your home does create what's called an electrical field. And a lot of people think that if they're in a bedroom, they turn off the ceiling light, they turn off the lamp, they get a battery-powered clock, that they've done everything they need to do. And they're really unaware that wiring in the wall is affecting them. Other people think they take it a step further and they just unplug stuff. Well, that wiring is still there. As long as that wiring is live, it is creating an electrical field which extends from the wall out, about 6 feet or so. It's variable, but it's definitely there, and you can measure it. You can measure it with a regular old voltmeter, $20 voltmeter, and instead of clipping the end onto a wire that you're measuring voltage, you hold it on your body, and as you get up close to the wall, you will have more what's called body voltage, and as you walk further away, your body voltage will fall off. These are referred to as AC electric fields, alternating current electric fields, or an increased body voltage. And I said it at one point in our talk here that the science is really pointing that it doesn't matter if it is a wired form of EMF, as in the wired electric fields that come from your home's walls, or wireless, that it's all likely affecting our physiology in the same sort of way, and over time damaging us in the same sort of way. So what you want to do is, ideally, you want to turn that power off to your sleeping area at night and reduce all of your wireless forms of emission like we talked about previously. And there are remote cutoff switches that you can get to, kill switches to help with this process. You can go out to your panel, which is typically located in your garage or basement, and turn off your circuit breakers. But I would have the caveat there that you would really only want to do that if your circuit breakers are switch rated. Most circuit breakers in this country are not, and they're not really meant to function as switches over time. They're meant to be turned on and off for servicing and for troubleshooting problems, but daily turning those off and on can cause them to malfunction and really represent a hazard. So don't do that unless you have circuit breakers that are switch rated. But when you do that, you have killed the power to that sleeping area, and that is the best way to eliminate those fields. This is the only way to eliminate those electric fields.
That's good to know. This podcast is brought to you by Juve Red Light Therapy. I have been using therapeutic red light for years, and it's part of my daily routine. So if you're not familiar with it, red light therapy, also called photobiomodulation, uses very specific wavelengths of light, which are in the 660 to 850 nanometer range, for clinically studied benefits, especially skin health, thyroid health, which is the reason I started using it, reducing pain and inflammation, and so much more. It's also has studies that show it can help hair regenerate and grow thicker and stronger, which is another wonderful benefit that I've noticed. And I noticed a ton of skin benefits as well. It's definitely become part of my life and my routine. Juve especially, they're third-party tested, they're validated by external studies, and they're FDA approved. They also have several different sizes of these red lights in combination that can fit in any size home or apartment. And they have a new modular design, which allows you to build a full body system all at once or over time. You can check all of that out on their website. Go to joovv.com/wellnessmama. That's JOOVV.com/wellnessmama to learn more. And you can also grab a special gift with any order. So check it out, joov.com/wellnessmama. This podcast is brought to you by KidsLoveToSwim.com. I've recently found this and absolutely adore this course, and I had to share it with you. We all know how important water safety is and how kids can drown in just minutes or seconds in a small amount of water, and especially if they don't know how to swim. In fact, the inability to swim is one of the biggest factors linked to drowning. This is such an important issue. It's a bigger risk for kids to drown in water than playing alone outside or walking to school by themselves. In fact, 2 children die every single day from accidental drowning. It's a horrible and big important issue. And for this reason, swimming is so much more than just a sport. It's a vital life skill that all of us need, but I get it can be super intimidating and scary for kids. You already teach your kids their ABCs and how to ride a bike and what foods help their body grow. And now, you can teach them to swim safely at home with this online course. You get the skills of a certified water safety instructor and lifeguard and parent, and he teaches you in just 5 simple steps and in only 14 days how to take your kids to swimming proficiency in a fun, engaging way that will increase their water ability drastically and also their bond with you. Go to KidsLoveToSwim.com to find out how. That's KidsLoveToSwim.com. I know that you have kind of a personal backstory with EMFs and how you got into this, because I know it's not super common. I have encountered very few medical professionals who are so knowledgeable about EMFs. So if it's not too personal of a topic, can you actually share kind of your own, as a little bit of a deviation from the topic, your own journey into how you realized this was so important, and then the solution that you have now figured out that is helpful with what you just talked about?
Yeah, sure. So, like you alluded to, it was for me, it was a growing, ancestral health awareness. It started with the dietary changes for myself and my family and kids, and and trying to encourage my patients as well. And then it moved into the blue light and that sort of mitigation. And light and EMF are on the same spectrum, and it just made sense to me, just like it did to you, that it's not natural. If we use nature as our ultimate standard, if that's the whole point of the ancestral movement, then we need to address, EMFs in the same manner. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I started walking out to to the garage and throwing the breaker. In the beginning, I just threw the main breaker because I didn't know about this body voltage testing and how to be really precise and not have to, cut off refrigeration and heating and cooling and fans.